Hello and welcome to the Cryptocurrency News channel. We're going to talk about the full list of company exposures that we know so far. I'm sure there's others that's going to be coming along of companies that lost money with FTX. Some of them are pwned, others still have plenty of money because a lot of these funds only had a small part of their money in FTX and they can offset it with gains in other parts of the fund. So let's actually go over the list. Obviously, some have lost more than others. When I actually say, these companies lost this much, it means like they had this much exposure to FTX. Yes, they could still possibly get some of this money out, but it's not looking good right now. So let's start with Genesis. We've talked about this. They lost $175 million. They're pretty much pwned. Their parent company tried to inject $140 million to save them, but they are still insolvent. Now, their parent company might try to inject more, but as of right now, it's not looking good for Genesis. And of course, that bleeds right into Gemini Earn. Gemini, the exchange and the staking should be fine because that actually happens at Gemini, but the earn happens at Genesis. Gemini Earn basically was using Genesis as like a third-party thing, and they actually did mention it in the fine print, which no one read, obviously. But if you have your money in Gemini Earn, it might be months, if ever, you get it out. So those two things pretty much dead right now. Third one is Galaxy Digital. They lost $76.8 million, and besides, this is all from like filings from the companies themselves. But they still have $1.5 billion in liquidity. A lot of this comes from Cointelegraph, but there are many other sources around the web that report this as well. They have about $1.5 billion in liquidity, despite losing $76.8 million. Now, Mike Novogratz in Galaxy Digital has taken two big hits this year, one from Terra Luna. Remember, he is the guy, I think, that got Terra Luna tattooed on himself. So he is a big loser. I'm not really sure if I would invest with Galaxy Digital right now because they've taken two huge hits, but they still have $1.5 billion in liquidity, which means like they still have enough liquidity for people to actually withdraw. Sequoia Capital lost over $200 million, although they did say that they made a lot of money in other parts of their fund, so they were able to cover the loss from FTX. They are basically just writing it off at a loss. I don't think they have too much hope of getting it back, and they are probably right. Moving on, Galeois Capital lost $100 million. I'm not sure about the financial health of their company, but remember, a lot of these capital investment funds have way more than $100 million invested. They have billions of dollars invested, so a $100 million loss, they can make it up and offset it with another part of their fund. I'm not really sure if they're okay or not, but they just lost $100 million. BlockFi is pretty much pwned. They're still waiting to retrieve their assets from FTX. I'm not really sure if that's going to be possible or not. But the only reason FTX wanted to buy BlockFi was to absorb their assets into their shell program. So I think BlockFi is pretty much dead, and it's either going to have to be acquired or liquidated. Crypto.com, I think they said they dodged a bullet. The $1 billion of customer assets they said they recovered from FTX. Not sure if that's 100% true or not, but I'm just going to go with what they say for right now. But they did lose about $10 million because of FTX exposure. So $10 million in losses confirmed. They say they recovered $1 billion of customer assets. I'm not really sure about that, but I'm just going to say that they're telling the truth and they recovered most of the funds. Let's just hope that that's true. Wintermute, I'm not sure about the status of the company. They lost a little bit in FTX, but they're also the company that lost $160 million earlier in the hack. They might be sort of financially iffy right now. I'm not really sure, but maybe more because of the hack than what they lost in FTX. Although if they go down, FTX could have been the last nail in the coffin. I'm not sure about their financial status. They could be okay, or they could be completely wrecked. We don't really know. Multicoin Capital lost over $850 million in the FTX fiasco. So I probably wouldn't invest in Multicoin Capital right now. That's a lot of money to lose in FTX. $850 million. I think they might be the biggest losers out of everyone on this list. Multicoin Capital. CoinShares lost $31.5 million. Not really sure about how they're actually doing. I'm not invested in CoinShares, so I don't know about their internal workings. Amber Group lost money too, but they lost less than 10% of their trading capital, which should actually be okay for them. That's not 10% of their overall capital. That's just 10% of their trading capital. So they should be able to survive it. Pantera, I think Pantera is going to be fine. Most of their losses come from the Blockfolio acquisition, which was paid in FTX, which is completely worthless now. So I think Pantera should actually be okay. Nexo is fine. They lost less than 0.5% of their assets, so like less than 1 parts in 200 of their assets. I think it was from like some small acquisition or something. I think Nexo didn't have that much exposure, but they had a little bit exposure to FTX, so they lost a little bit of assets. But Nexo should be fine. Binance still has FTX coins, and they're worthless now, so they lost, even though they were the ones that made the initial announcement. But Binance is fine. They have like $71 billion in actual assets. I think Binance is okay, as long as they're telling the truth, which I think they are, I'm pretty sure. And Tether said they had no exposure to FTX. That one I can actually believe, because Tether has very deep reserves, and when people started withdrawing, they were able to redeem. So I think Binance and Tether are fine. So the ones that are completely affected by this FTX thing, Genesis, Gemini, Galaxy Digital, Sequoia and Gallius are going to be okay, but BlockFi's pwned, Crypto.com seems to be okay. Wintermute might be in trouble, but it's not really from the FTX thing. Multi-coin collateral is a huge loser, and that's about like the ones that could actually die because of the FTX knock-ons. Now, right now, it does not look like the knock-on effects has too much effect on BTC, but if some of these companies have to start like basically selling their BTC because of the knock-on effects, we could definitely see further collapse of Bitcoin price, but it does not look like that's going to happen right now. So that's the overall that's really the overall story about who actually lost money. We have I'm going to count Binance because they did lose money in the FTX thing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 companies have lost money, at least some money in the FTX thing. I think 5 were major losers and could be destroyed. So that's the news for today. Let me know what you think. Like and subscribe, hit that bell notifications button. Thank you and have a nice day.